Now we want to look at another directive from the Central Bank of Nigeria to banks in Nigeria to ensure that deposit excess forex in its Lagos and Abuja branches. The essence of this is to shore up and also strengthen liquidity in the Nigeria economy. Let's begin our business of shaping policy in this regard by bringing in our guest analyst. We're being joined by Fidelis Atabo, who is a development economist and banking expert. He is also of the economist department, Federal University of Lafia, Nassarawa State. Glad to have you join us, Fidelis.
Hello, good morning.
Now,
Hello, good morning.
I would like to start by having your reaction to this directive from the CBN. The essence of this kind of directive is to shore up and also strengthen liquidity. But what do you make of this decision that money deposit banks, should deposit excess forex in its Lagos and Abuja branch? How do you react to this kind of guideline?
All right, good morning. Can you hear me, please? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Please go ahead.
All right.
Can you
okay,
hear me now?
Thank you very much. Yes, I can hear you also. The initiative by the Central Bank of Nigeria is actually a welcoming development because before now, you agree with me that prosecuting trade is actually not only the function of illiquidity, it's also the function of processing, and I think one of the angles that this is also targeting is efficient processing of Forex to be able to carry out international business seamlessly. And then liquidity on the other part also is also key, which is also the angle the CBN is starting to look at it from, to bring in efficiency into Forex markets. Because until we're able to achieve that efficiency into the Forex market, we will not be able to carry out trades seamlessly and timely to meet up with timelines as expected. And some of this default or some of this failure in meeting up with timelines has also caused losses to business owners and even government, as the case may be. So that is why CBN is coming in to see how there can be dual management from the side of deposit money banks and from the side of Central Bank of Nigeria. The CBN is also going to play a role. Every deposit money bank will be able to transmit money directly from CBN to the offshore bank or offshore vendor, as the case may be, and it doesn't take time. It's between T+5, which is barely a week. So with this, you can come up with your project that, yes, the timeline for my payment is 1 week, and it is efficiently done. And I think that is what we are trying, Central Bank is trying to achieve here. And then we also observe, if you could recall, if you remember when students want to pay, like in September, foreign school fees payments, there's going to be queue here and there to make sure that people pay their school fees. Some miss their timelines and it costs them extra charges. So with this efficient management, the deposit money bank's floor will be seamless for even people that want to pay school fees. They'll be able to pay timely, and with the liquidity, the issue of scarcity of Forex will be handled. Thank you very much.
All right, so I see that you've touched slightly on the benefits of this new directive, looking at those who may want to pay for tuition. But let's look at the general benefit of this new policy by the CBN on the markets, on the Forex markets, even on the deposits banks when it comes to Forex, and even those who would need to do business through the dollar, maybe paying for goods elsewhere and all of that. So what's the general benefit of this policy?
Yes, thank you very much. The general benefit of this policy is availability of FX for people that want to carry out their businesses. Some persons even resorted from international business because of scarcity of dollars. And then with this, the CBN will want to look at it, that if there is liquidity, we are looking at inflows, we're looking at remittances. It is there's what I call there's a relationship between what you're able to push out and what is able to come in. So if you don't push out substantially in terms of exports, in terms of trade, then the inflows that will come in will also be minimal. So if we're able to push out significantly with this efficient management of this Forex market via CBN and deposit money banks, many people, those that actually quit the international business will return back again. And many businesses that are looking up to us having their international business being carried out will also come in again. And it will benefit the MSME very well, because the MSMEs have niche and potentials to embark on international trade and businesses. But with this difficulty in assessing efforts before now, it is going to be very difficult for them. And I can tell you that any business that is being embarked upon without a touch of global influence, I don't think that business is likely to see the light of the day. Thank you very much.
All right. Over time, there's been increasing demands for banks to be able to streamline its forex cash management. Do you think this guideline will further help in strengthening the issue of streamlining forex cash management?
Yes, it will really help in a way that, yes, sometimes banks are being badged on with pressures. And because of this pressure, they try to prioritize as the case may be. But in this case, when the pressure has been doused with the excess being moved to CBN that can also carry out this service and responsibility on their behalf, the shop floor of deposit money banks will be a bit eased up to be able to manage the customers that come for certain transaction in their shop floor. And it will begin to open up the economy to more of international trade, whereby every other person can also begin to look in that direction. I think the deposit money bank, the commercial banks will be eased up, with some pressure, and I think they will have some relief to be able to carry out and attend to every customer on a case-by-case basis, as it will benefit the bank and the customer on a win-win basis. Thank you.
Implementation. Do you foresee any challenge with this directive? First, let's take a look at the limit for deposits. For the dollars, the threshold shouldn't be more than $10 million, and for the pound sterling and euro, £1 million sterling or €1 million. Do you see this as a limitation in any way?
Yes, it's actually a limitation to some certain huge businesses. But in every limitations, there are ways around it. By the time this has actually eaten into the mainstream of the commercial banks, into the mainstream of the financial system of the economy, and then the investors and the international partners will also begin to know the pattern of operation of our financial system here. They begin to look at it, how they can bus pay for goods and services, as the case may be, just like the bulk payment that the vendor is waiting for over there. So even the CBN on their part too, they may also look at it in a way of how to increase the limit as we move on. But in the first place, let us get it right. Let the system and the structure be put in place. Once we have the system and structure put in place and is working transparently, CBN is likely to review the limit to be able to allow big businesses to carry out transactions seamlessly. But initially, it's actually going to be a challenge. But I want to assure you that as we move on, CBN is also looking at what is happening on ground. They'll be able to increase the limits to meet up with the realities of our trade transactions. Thank you very much.
Also, let's look at some of the key guidelines as released by the CBN, which is the fact that before making deposit, banks are expected to give like 3 days a notice, like working day notice, before these deposits are being made. And also, they're expected to back this kind of transaction with the beneficiaries of the currencies. What do you make of this guideline? Will it not further create bottleneck as regards access to Forex?
All right. Yes, initially it is really going to create bottlenecks because some of these people coming for trade transactions, what they look at is, okay, I come for my trade, let's have it done. But in terms of benchmarking, it is also easy for commercial banks. Forex transaction, even before now, you have more than 10, 15 customers waiting in a particular branch of any commercial bank. So the benchmarking is actually not going to be a very difficult thing because as they are sending the excess to CBN, is actually going with, okay, Mr. A and B, A, B, C, going for a specific amount of Forex, it will also go along with it. I don't think it's actually a major problem, but the most important thing is that the commercial banks will have to review their processes to make sure that they're able to meet up. But the timing is also what I see because it happens between 8 o'clock and 12 o'clock, and then the timing is also what I see as a challenge because left to commercial banks too, this can also be done up to after 12 and even 1, 2, but I want to believe that since it's an excess funds, they are moving to CBN, they'll be able to merge the two and begin to educate the customers. And, customer education is very key. We need to pass this, they need to quickly pass this information to our customers so that they now change their trade and transaction dynamics to meet up with the policy retooling that the First Bank is actually coming up with. For every policy, we might not actually see the benefits immediately, but along the line, it's likely to come up with something that will benefit the economy. And then everybody, even the deposit money banks, will begin to benefit from it again. Let's give CBN that opportunity. Let's give them that fair judgment and support this initiative to make sure that we run it and see how the outcome will look like, hoping that we'll be able to solve the problem of illiquidity of FX and begin to have a bumper FX to attract export business, to give us the kind of remittances that will boost and strengthen our Naira, that will boost the economy and strengthen our Naira. Thank you.
The aim of this policy is to achieve a convergence between the official markets and the parallel markets in terms of the exchange rates. How is this going to play out?
Yes. Before now, you are aware that the parallel markets and then the official market has been left to market realities. And because they have been left to market realities, it behoves on both of them to see how they can make sure that what CBN is appropriating to the black market, is going to have a commensurate minimum profit impact if they have exchanged hands with it. What we are saying here is the black markets, we expect that they should make what you call normal profits. If they are able to make normal profits, over time, they'll be able to make the kind of money they are looking for. But when there's an abnormal profit, that is what will bring pressure on the Naira. So we are saying that the CBN is going to make provision for them to make their normal profits. So even if you are buying from the black market or you are buying from CBN to CBN, you are going to see that the variance is highly going to be insignificant because there's going to be, how do I call it, liquidity. Once there's liquidity, it begins to force down the pricing of the black market segment. And by the time it begins to forces down the prices of the black market segment, it begins to narrow it down closer to the official rate. And in the medium term to long run, the black market segment will begin to earn their normal profits. And once they begin to earn their normal profits, they will remain in business consistently and sustainably. And that is what the CBN is trying to achieve here. Anywhere in the world, black market is obtainable. But the way we run it in Nigeria here is actually different from what is obtainable in other global world. Because when you, in other global world, you make your normal profits, you look at your overhead costs, you look at your profits. So in the long run, you know what you are going to make. But here, we are trying to make everything in one day from the black market segment, most especially because of the pressure that has been put on the naira, because of the scarcity of the dollars that is in Nigeria. Everybody is coming to acquire dollar, but we don't even know where they are keeping them. So it's actually another major problem because of the funds that are also out there. But when black market segments are beginning to have normal profits, I think the harmonization, will be achieved. Thank you.
All right, let's look at the fact that the CBN has also mandated that two representatives of these deposit banks will have to be present to witness the transaction. Why do you think this is necessary? And also, let's look at the time frame between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. What will be the impact of this?
Well, the presence of the two representatives of this deposit money banks is not a challenge. But I think what the deposit money bank needs to do is to see how they can review their system. For instance, Mr. A's transaction is to be carried out tomorrow. All things being equal, it should be done with it today. Knowing the exact amount, making sure that the documentation is in place. Before they close of business today, for example, all the documentation, everything is set. By next day, we send it to CBN. So I think commercial banks too, their system is very efficient. They will not have problem with this because it's just as good as what we are doing with clearing system too. Third-party checks that is being paid into commercial banks. It goes through clearing. So all this can also be refined to be as seamless as the third-party check clearing that goes to a third-party commercial bank that is as seamless as now. Unlike before, in the past, you issue check in Lagos to maybe Abuja, it takes days. But now we are clearing it seamlessly through electronic system. So we are also envisaging that this system can also be modeled alongside this electronic system of check clearing to be able to make it seamless for both commercial banks and the CBN. It is achievable. We have to go E, and we are going E. So by the time CBN emphasize and then do more efforts in terms of e-clearing and then e-processing rather, I don't think it's actually a challenge. It may look Herculean physically by way of statements, by way of expression, but I can assure you that system-wise, it's actually something that can be achieved easily. I think this is a policy that we need to push. Thank you.
Now, do you see this process increasing transaction costs? Talking about movement of Forex from one bank to the CBN.
Yes, it comes with transaction costs. And the transaction cost, I think, is about 0.something%. I've forgotten. But I know it comes with transaction cost. And the issue with transaction cost is actually what we may really not need to bother ourselves so much, because for every transaction, there is a cost. And then in the past, you see that the losses that even business owners make from inability to, consummate their Forex deals. Sometimes it's in billions and in millions. And then you can see that this transaction, we are looking at the transaction cost that I can say that if actually they have their foreign trade being processed seamlessly, the transaction costs might not really mean any effect on the part of the bank. And the bank, in a way, would transmit it to the customer also. But I want to believe that customer that is able to do economies of scale, in a way that you'll be able to carry out trade that is supposed to consummate within, in the past, and even present within 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, is able to consummate it within 2 months. We are looking at rate of turnover. The rate of turnover the customer is going to make from his business because of the seamless transaction. You know, when you do cost-benefit analysis, the benefit is really going to outweigh the cost. So I can see that in the long run, the transaction costs, you know, is going to get fizzled in the trade process, and then the customers will begin to enjoy more seamlessness, that the transaction costs will not really mean so much, but will even disappear in the long run. I can assure you that, because customers will also bear little of this transaction cost. But the crux of it is that I will prefer to have my trade done, carried out seamlessly within the stipulated time that I've agreed with my vendor abroad, than delaying it for months, weeks, and I begin to bear some charges over there. So the transaction cost is not actually going to be a focal challenge, but it's going to be like a kind of an option for the CBN to be able to carry out this transaction, given the extra cost it's going to cost them to carry out this transaction, and even the CBN, the commercial banks too, is going to cost them extra restructuring of system, extra cost of system restructuring to be able to carry out this process. So I think this transaction cost is for the purpose of the extra costs that the parties and the stakeholders are actually going to put in place to make sure that this succeeds. Thank you.
What would you expect as a form of preparation to the transition to these new guidelines from the CBN? What would you expect some of these banks who are being affected by these guidelines to do as regards awareness on the part of customers, and also the required preparation for this guideline to become a reality?
All right. I think the commercial banks on their parts, they need to really adjust themselves in terms of structure. You know, they need to review their structure. Just as I said earlier, when we started e-check clearing, you know, it was looking like something that is not going to be possible. But when structures were being put in place and supports were given by the stakeholders, it was really achieved. So I also expect that the commercial banks set up and review their structure to be able to meet up with this new developments that CBN has actually come up with. You know, specific staffs that are going to also be part of this. It's high time they start training them, and then they start sending them for training. They start training them within, as the case may be. You know, start giving them a better orientation, aligning them with what the system or the structure looks like and their expectation. Then the system also needs to be reviewed where we don't have adequate gadgets, adequate electronic system that can also foster this movement. I think it is also ideal for banks to start putting all those in place now to see how this transition can be seamless. And then on their part too, they need to be very fast about it, because first and initial banks that are be able to do this, you know, the news will begin to go around that Bank A is able to handle this transaction, Bank B is not able to handle the transaction, and you know how it flies in the market. So the earlier they quickly amass themselves with this change and try to be among the first, or the first to take the first lead, it is really going to work out for some of these commercial banks that will start very well. And finally, what they need to do is effective sensitization. You know, they need to carry out sensitization. Probably it might not just be a phone call. It might not just be email this time. I think this is a very critical change, a critical movement in the Forex market. It calls for a town hall meeting between banks and their customers. You know, they need to call critical customers that are partaking in this kind of transaction for a town hall meeting, so that there can be proper education and proper guide on how this transaction is going to be carried out. Sometimes information sent via email, phone messages, and even by phone call may not actually be received by customers, as the case may be. You know, but this is very critical, very, very critical. And sometimes you see people that are carrying out this kind of business, their level of education is even another challenge. It's the third party that will read some of this notification for them, you know, and then you also see that in the process, the information could be mutilated, and then might not be given to this, transmitted to the end user, which is the actual customer accordingly. So I am suggesting that commercial banks, SME section, and then commercial transaction, you know, should quickly call for a town hall meeting between critical customers that are into this type of transaction, you know, to be able to have a meeting with them, educate them on the way forward, the processes, and then how we can achieve this together. So sensitization is actually very, very key. And early sensitization is also very advocated. And any bank that is able to do this, you know, within the first time, you know, customers will begin to actually look in their direction. Thank you very much.
Another development, the CBN says that Nigeria's foreign reserve has grown to about $34 billion, the first time since March this year. How do you take the news, and what do you think is responsible for this increase in Nigeria's foreign reserve?
All right, thank you very much. I think before we talk about the increase in Nigeria foreign reserve, we need to look at the depletion that we have witnessed in the past months. You know, why the depletion of foreign reserve was ongoing. You know, I told the folks around me that it's actually normal when you have a huge debt and then you are servicing, and then the production capacity of the country is weak. You know, you need to see how you can actually adjust to be able to look responsible in terms of borrowing in the face of international partners like IMF and other partners that we borrow money from in Nigeria. But when you cannot even service your debt, talk more of repaying the loan, it becomes difficult for any partner to actually have anything to do with you. So our case was becoming critical. And I think the CBN governor had to look within to see how our loans will become serviceable and repayable. You know, so they were able to do this. And then as we speak, our loans are repayable now, not just being serviceable. We are repaying our loans. And I think that the effect of that initiative and the creativity by CBN governor to be able to make the loans repayable, and then to be able to clean our credits ratings, you know, to increase it positively to a higher mileage, actually affected the depletion. And as you can see, it's actually increased. It's not just because that nothing is happening. You know, we have increase in our remittances. And you know that increase in remittances is actually one of the factors that is responsible for increase in our foreign reserves. And when you are talking about increase in remittances, it is not just only when you are talking about foreign reserve increase, it's not only increase in remittances that is responsible for this factor. We also look at increase in exports. We will also have to look at foreign direct investment. We need a favorable trade. Our current current account trade was in credit, and I think that is also contributed to it. We have to look at the exchange rate policies, how it has been handled. All this will lead to increase in foreign reserves. Investors' confidence is also there. So by the time you see what we have done so far, given our remittances, increase in crude oil exports, you can see that if you put all these things together, coupled with the transparency with the CBN government in terms of policies, I think they have also made it easier for us to be able to rebound our foreign reserves that we are seeing today. Sometimes some of these policies from CBN, they will be coming, or they might be coming as if they are coming to kill the economy, they are coming to kill the bank, they are coming to kill the people. But when we were borrowing as at up to May 2023, we were borrowing to even pay salary. It was a very critical condition for us. So CBN would definitely take some tough policies that in the medium and long term, the country will begin to benefit from them, and it will translate to better GDP and better welfare for the citizens of the country. Thank you.
All right, you've almost summarized what the CBN needs to do as regards strengthening the external reserves. But let's be specific now. Let's look at the issue of crude oil production, which is one of the major ways to also generate FX. Now, you're aware that in the last few months, Nigeria has not been produced as expected as regards the OPEC quota due to oil theft, pipeline vandalism. What can be done in this regard to ensure that the proper effects that ought to be generated in this regard are being generated? What can be done differently as regards the issue of crude oil production?
All right, thank you very much. You see, there's this African proverb that says, if you don't have two farms, you cannot say one is my up farm and the other the down farm. This is relative anyway. Crude oil is actually our major source of income in this country, and we should not toy with it. We should not toy with it. Because irrespective of what we are getting from the non-oil sector, we also need to hold on to our crude oil to make sure that every angle of theft is actually being mitigated. From what we have seen so far, successively by various governments, you will agree with me that efforts to curb crude oil theft is actually becoming very, very difficult. Because there is no government that we have not witnessed crude oil theft. If this is becoming a major problem, my advice to the country is to contract the security of our oil production in Nigeria to a third party. It could be a foreign security outfit. It could be a local security outfit that they know that, yes, this is why we are here. And these people will have the capacity, even if it means for them to have jets, flying helicopters that will be going around, given the nature of the contract, they'll be able to do this. But with what we are doing, I don't think we have really been able to handle the security, the theft around this our crude oil. And I think if it is being contracted outrightly to a third party, we will measure the third party's performance vis-a-vis the production of our crude oil. If there is theft, we begin to tell the third party security that we have engaged that because of your inefficiency, we are not able to maximize our crude oil as expected. That means the third party is not performing. The third party is subject to being hired and being fired. And then as we do that, the third party will sit up and then we'll be able to see that there will be improvement in the loss we make from the theft of our crude oil. And I want to assure you that by the time you run the benefit cost analysis of contracting the crude oil guiding the crude oil, the benefit cost analysis, if you run it very well, you agree with me that it is more profitable for us to contract it to a third party than having them to be looted by miscreants, you know. So the money we're even spending on security to mitigate the theft of oil, crude oil theft, is not yielding as expected. So if we have done this locally, yes, we can have a very strong local company that is ready to do this for us. Then we'll now draw a KPI that we'll use in measuring this company that, okay, since you're going to work for us, this is a major KPI. We use this KPI against that company. The company can be local, it can be foreign. It can be combination of both, it can be partnership, it can be PPP, as the case may be, so that we'll be able to handle that very well. I think the president of the day is expected to look in that direction, and I want to suggest that contracting is actually the solution. You know, contracting to a third party, you know, to watch over our crude oil theft is actually, to me, a lasting solution to this oil theft that has actually eroded us on some of the money that we are supposed to have made, because over time we have actually tried as much as possible to mitigate and find solution to this locally. Is becoming unachievable. So let's do something very radical. Let's do something very different, and let's do something that we are sure that we can measure with the key performance indicators to be able to say that company A is not been able to tackle this for us, despite the fact that we have engaged you. The oil theft is on the increase. Let's give it to company B. So by the time we're able to do firing and hiring of these companies that will be coming, I can assure you in the medium to long term, most especially the crude oil theft is actually going to be a thing of the past. Thank you.
In sustaining the increase in Nigeria's Forex reserve, diversifying away from the oil sector would be a good thing to do, don't you agree? Now, if we look at diversifying, looking at the non-oil sector, particularly services sector, even as the CBN has advocated for more diaspora remittance, what can be done in that sector?
All right. Yes, we don't need to remain and sit on only oil sector, because whether I would like it or not, it will go one day. And the CBN's efforts in making sure that the other non-oil sector thrives in the economy is actually a welcoming development, because the challenge we are having in the non-oil sectors, for example, if you look at mining, for example, you know, mining, there are illegal minings everywhere. Yes, even the illegal minings, what are they doing with it? You know, how are they selling them? All these things needs to be looked into. So government needs to look at it. It's not as if you are coming to take food away from these people, but how can they even be safe in carrying out this exploit in the first place? You need to look at that. You consider the safety of these illegal miners. Then what can we do? Can the government incorporate the so-called illegal miners, you know, and create a segment, a niche, a safety niche for them, where they can be carrying out such mining that will be safe for the environment and will be safe for the individuals that are involved. So we need to also look at that. So we need to harness our human capital to be able to key into the new normal entrepreneurs that will be able to meet up with the ideas that the CBN is coming up with. One of the challenges we have before now is this poor human capital development. Everybody will say, I need funds from CBN. But funds are given. Somebody does not have business plan. The business plan probably may have been written by a third party. He may not probably looked at it, and he submits, get funds. At the end of the day, he diverts these funds. So we are looking at a situation whereby CBN, Bank of Industry, Development Bank of Nigeria will begin to improve on this human capital development before funds is even being assessed. And our data generation for this purpose is actually not effective. Some of this data we generate for our MSMEs are generated from internet. And sometimes this data we generate from internet depends on the sources. And some data are actually not even being updated. But to me, the best data you can generate is the physical data of who is working and who is not working. For instance, in a particular state, it is not difficult for me. I can run and extract data of all the enterprise that is being carried out in a particular state, based segment by segment. And by the time we have this, we'll be able to know that, yes, if you are coming into this segment, for instance, just as I say, you can empower. Let me even use the least one that might shock you. Do you know that what we call the tea sellers by the roadside, we call them the Meshai, is a very lucrative business, and it's even a spot that even bank workers and every other persons can go there and have a hot tea during cold weather. But because that place is not habitable, because it does not conform with the standards that every other person can come there and just have a cup of tea and proceed to work, we don't visit them. For instance, that segment, for example, you can carry that segment, and that segment we can develop a kiosk for them that will be very neat and give them at least a working capital of about 100,000, for example. And once a place is neat and is hygienically okay, everybody will come there. You will discover that where that Meshai is making probably a sales of 20,000 a day, but because of the patronage he's going to have, he will make more than up to 50,000. And this can be achieved by government. So we can take segment by segment, sector by sector. We look at it. We try to educate them. We try to restructure. We try to review to make sure that it conforms to standard. And if it conforms to standard, they will be able to have patronage. And if they have patronage, they will make more money. Vulcanizers, we can also do the same. Many of them, overinflation of tires is a challenge. We can get some modern equipment and give to them. You will discover that this can also reduce road accident as well. So I digressed a little, but I want to tell you that by the time the CDS effort is being married with this kind of raw data that is being collected along all the 36 states, I can assure you that the money will get to the right people, not generating data from a wrong source or from an unupdated source, and then you use the data. Before facility is being available to you, you need to know that, yes, you're actually on ground. And those with ideas, there is room for them too. Government will have a way to create a niche for them. You must not wait until somebody starts. You must not wait until somebody have statement of account. This is actually what I think what baffles me. The beautiful ideas have been killed and buried because the brain behind it does not have a statement of account. We should do something like Silicon Valley, where ideas have been harnessed and then they have been propelled. And today, that is what is helping America. America developed because of new ideas, new innovations that were being supported by government, private individuals. We need to have that so that we'll be able to look at ideas from the perspective of Naira and Kobo. Then we'll be able to see that, yes, this can be achieved. I think with this, around what the CBN is doing to improve the growth of non-oil sector segments will really work for the economy. Thank you.
Much Fidelis Atabo, development economist and banking expert, for your wonderful thoughts and recommendations on the show today.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll leave the conversation there and hope that in the next or at the end of the next Monetary Policy Committee meeting of the CBN, because that's where we began from, looking at the tightening of monetary tightening policy of the CBN. Maybe the economy would have some room to breathe, and the inflation rate that has been going up with new approach could be reduced. Before we wrap up the show, let's inform you of something very nice, something important that will also translate to economic development in Nigeria. Is starting today. The Office of the Auditor General of for the Federation, in conjunction with Public Accounts Committee of the National Assembly, will be having a workshop for DGs and CEOs of the various ministries, departments of agencies of Nigeria today. It begins today and will run through the rest days of the week. This event, this workshop, is facilitated by Africa Development Studies Center, ADSC. So, as a way to encourage development, those who are in charge of managing the country's finance must know how to effectively administer finance of the country. So that's what the workshop is about. It's about current trends in public accounting and auditing. So we'll bring you that event later on today. There will be a live stream, and also we'll be having conversations with some of the DGs and CEOs that will be present today at that event. I am Blessing Ejimedi. Thanks for watching Early Exchange. The show continues tomorrow, 8 a.m. West African time. Just stay with SOUQ News. You don't want to miss this event I just told you about.
All right, it's also important to let you know that at Caleb University, there's going to be an important business seminar for entrepreneurs, for local and international entrepreneurs who want to see what they can do to up their game. It's compulsory for you to attend this seminar and this training. And like that our obligation is to shape policy, SOUQ News TV will be there live to give you live update and give you latest development as regards the business seminar taking place today at Caleb University. Don't forget, as regards Early Exchange, the conversation continues on our social media platform, and Market Insight comes up at 11. Early Exchange returns tomorrow, bigger and better. I am Femi Ayodele. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.